G'day, welcome back to the Enterprise Tech Playbook, where we are on a mission to empower every IT professional with actionable wisdom and a collaborative community, making their next stride in enterprise tech one that truly leads with impact. Imagine being an IT leader facing a legal demand for CCTV footage from a decade ago, only to find that your systems wiped it after 30 days, or grappling with parents demanding their children not be recorded, when your primary duty is the safety of all children in the centre. In the wake of the deeply concerning alleged offences recently highlighted in Victoria's early childhood education and care sector, the spotlight is firmly on the critical role of technology in children's safety. Today, we're diving deep into the unique, intensely challenging world of CCTV footage data in ECEC. We'll unpack the critical conundrum of data retention, the ethical tightrope of parental consent, and reveal how IT leaders can navigate these complex waters to build a robust, ethical, and legally compliant visual data strategy that truly protects the most vulnerable. Speaking personally as a dad of two kids who, while not in daycare anymore, still attend outside school hours care, these topics hit incredibly close to home, highlighting the profound human impact of our tech decisions. In our last episode, we laid the crucial groundwork for IT's role in early childhood education and care sector, exploring the fundamental drivers for children's safety, robust data security, and the indispensable role of MFA and role-based access control, and the complexity of information sharing and the regulations. If you haven't heard that one already, I highly recommend checking it out. I'll link it somewhere over here or over here. See how I edit this. CCTV footage in EC is fundamentally different from security cameras in the warehouse or the office. It captures intimate moments of children's development, interactions with staff, and highly personal family data. As such, it's considered personal information under the Australian privacy law, meaning its collection, use, and storage are subject to strict legal obligations. There is a growing prevalence for a mandated CCTV footage rollout. Major providers like G8 Education and Affinity Education Groups are already fast-tracking installations across their centres nationwide. This means IT is facing a massive rollouts and the ongoing management challenges of such systems. This isn't just about plugging in cameras. It's about integrating a complex high-volume data stream into an existing, often stretched IT infrastructure. How are organizations scaling their networks, storage, and processing power to handle this tsunami of visual data? Unlike other data, video footage can convey nuanced interactions, body language, and context that written records cannot. This makes it incredibly valuable for investigations, but also extremely vulnerable to misinterpretation or misuse. Imagine trying to capture a child's distress or a subtle, concerning interaction with a written report. Video provides an undeniable, unvarnished truth. But with that power comes immense responsibility for secure handling and ethical interpretation. For IT, managing CCTV means ensuring secure collection, encrypted storage, and highly restricted access with multi-factor authentication for all users and role-based access control to govern permissions precisely. Cameras must be ethically placed, and that means not in bathrooms, change rooms, or sleeping areas. And there should be absolutely no public access to these live feeds. This isn't going to be a set and forget. IT needs to be the architect of a digital fortress around this footage. We're talking about rigorous access logging, regular audits, and zero tolerance for unauthorized viewing. The critical conundrum of data retention for CCTV. This is arguably the most complex, contentious issue surrounding CCTV footage in ECEC. Now, we touched on data retention principles in episode 1, but for CCTV, the stakes are profoundly higher. Let's look at the current landscape. Short retention and the privacy principle. The rule versus the need. Generally, under the Australian privacy principles, personal information should not be kept longer than is necessary. For routine CCTV footage, this has typically translated into policies of, from my research, somewhere between 14 and 30 days. Some specific ECEC record keeping guides might advise keeping child enrolment records for 3 years after the last attendance, or a specific incident and injury record until the child turns 25. This short retention is primarily driven by the privacy principle, data minimization, reducing the risk of breaches, and historical cost and considerations of storages. Now, the problem when short retention fails justice and child protection. This is the conflict arc. The Royal Commission findings into the institutional response to child sexual abuse made a powerful and challenging recommendations. Organisations engaged in child-related work should retain records relating to child sexual abuse or alleged abuse for at least 45 years. This is a stark contrast to the common 14 to 30 days in the CCTV footage policies that I reviewed. Now, within this Royal Commission, there was also findings that the average time for a person to disclose child sexual abuse is almost 24 years. This means that by the time an allegation is made and an investigation begins, crucial CCTV evidence from the time of the alleged incident would be long gone under the typical policies. This profoundly hampers the police investigation and the pursuit for justice. While not always conclusive, CCTV footage can provide vital corroborating evidence, establish presence, clarify timelines, and even help identify patterns of behaviour over a time period, which short retention periods entirely prevent. Let's look at the implications for IT leaders. When we are looking at storing this for such a long time, the storage and scale is going to blow out. Retaining decades of high-definition CCTV footage and the associated sensitive incident data demands exponential increases in secure, long-term storage. This means substantial investment in scalable cloud solutions, tiered storage, and robust archiving, significantly impacting IT's budget. Managing decades of data is not just about storage. It requires sophisticated data classification indexing and secure capabilities to effectively retrieve the specific footage or records years later, often under the legal subpoena. This means robust policies, who can initiate such searches, why, and ensuring all access is secure, making it findable, usable, and admissible, potentially decades down the line. We need to be able to pinpoint a specific 5-minute clip from 20 years ago, quickly and securely. Now, let's look at privacy versus protection. And trust me, this is going to be a legal tightrope. IT leaders must collaborate intimately with legal counsel to navigate the legal and ethical tensions between the privacy obligations, favouring the short-term retention, and the critical need for child protection, requiring the long-term data. Policies need to be meticulously crafted to explain this balance. This is where IT gets to be the true strategic partner, not just a service provider. We are the nexus of legal compliance, ethical responsibility, and technical feasibility. How do we explain to stakeholders why a 45-year retention period, while vital for justice, is almost a monumental technical and financial undertaking? Balancing that and having those conversations are going to be incredibly difficult. For the footage to be admissible as evidence years later, its integrity and authenticity must be guaranteed. This calls for secure, tamper-proof storage, comprehensive audit logs of all access and modifications, and potentially exploring technologies for immutable records. Now, leads me on to one of my biggest questions. Is blockchain going to be one of the best situations here for this CCTV footage? Let me know in the comments below. Perhaps not today, but the principle of immutability and verifiable audit trails is absolutely critical for any footage that might become evidence. IT must design this from day one. Now, moving forward, call for unified and child-centric standards. There's an urgent need for a unified national standard for data retention in ECEC, particularly for CCTV footage and child safety records that explicitly reconciles privacy with the long-term evidentiary needs of child protection. I personally believe that the government should be stepping in and assisting with this. The recognition from the governments that mandating long retention requires significant investment in secure storage infrastructure, advanced data management systems, and the expert personnel for ECEC providers, especially the smaller ones, is going to be absolutely critical here. And we also need to be looking at a risk-based tiered retention, potentially a more nuanced approach where routine footage is retained for a shorter period, but anywhere where there is a potential incident or a realized incident related footage, or data pertaining to individuals flagged that are of concern, is retained for a much longer period. Example, aligning the 45-year recommendations from the Royal Commission. Now, one of the biggest questions to the community out there: how can IT leaders in ECEC advocate for and implement a forward-thinking data retention strategy that bridges the gap between the privacy laws and the long-term needs for child protection investigations, ensuring both compliance at the highest level of child safety? What specific technologies or policies should they be championing? And finally, on to one of the most hardest parts. Yes, you thought about setting up infrastructure to hold data for 45 years was difficult. Let's get into this one. Let's address another highly complex and sensitive aspect of CCTV footage: parental consent. And most importantly, what happens if it's withheld or withdrawn? As discussed, CCTV footage of identifiable children is personal information under the Privacy Act. While no single national law mandates explicit parental consent for visual recording in non-private ECEC areas, it is overwhelmingly considered best practice and necessary for compliance with privacy principles. Best practice demands clear notification through signage and detailed policies in enrollment forms. Audio recordings typically requires explicit consent in most Australian states. Here, I'm not going to break down the difference between each state and territory in Australia, but if you're an IT professional listening to this, please research this and ensure that you are talking with your legal counsel. Children cannot legally give informed consent. That kind of makes sense. It's the parent's responsibility. This places a direct obligation on the ECEC provider to act in the children's best interests, balancing their privacy with the overall safety. Let's look at the implications of non-consent or withdrawn consent for IT and operations. I think that this is going to be an all or nothing dilemma. Most existing CCTV systems record continuously across an area. They lack the sophisticated real-time artificial intelligence to dynamically identify and mask one specific moving child without also affecting other children or the integrity of the footage of safety. Now, again, as a parent of 2 kids, trust me, they're not going to sit still for very long. Question to the community on this one. Can IT systems really perform real-time dynamic masking of specific individuals in a live feed without creating critical blind spots or compromising the integrity of footage for safety? In my view, I don't think that the technology is simply there quite yet for large-scale deployments like the ECEC sector is currently discussing and, in some cases, already rolling out. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. What solution would you be proposing if you were in this space? Now, the practicality of deletion and masking. Retrospectively reviewing hours of footage to identify and manually mask or delete a single child is going to be immensely resource intensive, impractical for routine operations, and itself carries the privacy risks. While AI-driven post-processing masking exists, it's typically for a specific limited export requests, not for the daily operations and compliance for non-consent. And if a part of the room cannot be recorded due to non-consent, it could create blind spots that compromise the overall safety and evidential value for all children, or for an investigating staff's conduct. This is where individual privacy rights lied with the collective need for a safe environment. The Legal and Ethical Balance Act. Safety versus individual consent. ECEC providers have a primary non-delegable duty of care for all children. CCTV is increasingly seen as a vital tool to support this duty. In many cases, transparent notification during enrollment, followed by continued attendance, is interpreted as implied consent of being recorded in these non-private areas, necessary for supervision. In the shared supervised spaces, excluding private areas, the expectation of absolute anonymity for recording may be deemed lower than in a private home, especially when the purpose is legitimate child safety. Ultimately, if a parent's non-consent truly cannot be accommodated without compromising safety, the centre might, as a last resort, have to inform the parent that it cannot safely or practically enroll their child under those conditions. And I would imagine that this is going to be a difficult but sometimes necessary choice when the collective safety of the children is at stake. So, this is an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the paramount duty of care for all children means individuals' requests for privacy cannot be fully accommodated by the existing technologies or operating models without creating an unacceptable risk. And the question is, if more and more centres are going to be rolling out this technology more broadly, then what does it mean for a parent who is looking for a centre without CCTV footage? IT should evaluate systems not just on the recording quality, but on their ability to manage access, providing robust audit trails and potentially support limited, policy-driven masking for specific legal requests. They must also look at what the technology's capability is for retrieving specific footage. When it looks at data integrity, we need to be ensuring that if any masking or reduction occurs for specific requests, that the original unedited footage is maintained securely for official investigations. That's going back to ensuring that all footage is immutable. And one of my biggest bugbears is when you make a policy that you actually need to review it and also keep it up to date. Now, my question through to the community. Given the complexities of parental consent for CCTV footage, how can IT leaders help ECEC organisations implement systems and policies that transparently communicate the need for recording for child safety, manage parental expectations, and balance individual privacy rights with the paramount collective duty of care? What advice would you give to any IT professionals facing the direct request for a child not to be recorded? Or what advice would you give to an IT professional and the centre director comes and says to the IT person that they've had a request for one specific child not to be recorded? The world of CCTV and ECEC is just a small little segment of the broader challenges in data management. It forces us to confront fundamental questions about technology and its role in society, balancing privacy with protection and the critical importance of secure, ethical data handling. For IT leaders, navigating these waters requires not just technical prowess, but an understanding of legal frameworks, ethical considerations, and the profound human impact of their decision. And that wraps up our two-part series on IT role in ECEC data security and child safety. We hope this deep dive has provided you with valuable insights and actionable strategies for your own organisation or your role. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube, and don't forget to join us over on our LinkedIn community. Search for the Enterprise Tech Playbook. And until next time, keep learning, keep evolving, and lead with impact.